Okay, let's get ready to make our quilt sandwiches. We're going to need quilt sandwiches in order to put the embroidery through all of the layers. This is what you're going to need. Your top fabric, which I'm going to be using the Shannon Fabrics Stonewash Cloud and the Stonewash in black, as well as batting. Because I'm using a polyester fabric, I'm going to use a batting that has a high polyester content, either 100% or 80-20 poly. I like the Quilter's Dream. And then, of course, your backing fabric. Okay, let's make some quilt sandwiches because we need to put layers of our fabric together in the embroidery hoop in order to embroider on it. Okay, I have some fabric, but the first thing that I really need is my embroidery hoop. So I've got my 10 by 10 embroidery hoop that I'm going to be using on my machine so I can make my 8.5-inch squares. This is the 10 by 10 mighty hoop, and I'm going to be using it on my commercial embroidery machine. And what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to build my quilt sandwich over, oops, let's get the back of that off, the base of my hoop. Okay, the reason that I'm doing that is because I need to make sure that my quilt sandwich is secure and stable in the hoop because I'm not using any stabilizer. So let's get our fabrics. So I've got a piece of black for the backing. Okay, so I'm going to hoop my black for the backing. And look, this piece of black is actually not large enough because I can see both the top and bottom of the hoop. And so even though this is definitely big enough for the 8 by 8 block, it's not big enough for the hoop. And with machine embroidery, the most important thing is that your fabric or the quilt sandwich, whatever you're embroidering on, is stable. And this is not going to be stable because it's not quite wide enough. So I need to get another piece and start over with my quilt sandwich. Okay, I've got another piece and I've just got some yardage here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to see how much I need to cover the hoop. And then I'm going to get that much, not only of my backing fabric, but also of my batting and my top fabric. Once these are all done in the hoop, I'll have a block that I will cut out. But you can see that just the block by itself is not big enough, and I can't use a smaller hoop because this is too close to the edges. So I'm using a slightly bigger hoop because that's the way you do a Quilt-As-You-Go in the hoop project, and it's going to work out just fine. So let's get this piece of fabric for the back side. Let's see. I'm going to move my hoop out of the way, and I've got, let's see if it'll stay there. Nope, it's not going to stay there. Let's move it over here, and let's lay out our fabric. And I'm going to use my, I'm using the Sew Tights cutting system to help me cut my fabric. And I like it because these magnets really hold everything nice and flat so that when I get to the point of cutting it with a rotary cutter, nothing is going to move around and I don't have to worry about my fabric slipping. So let's cut this piece bigger than what my hoop is. Okay, I'm going to cut along that side, and along this side. And of course, you know, you may be using a different hoop for a different machine. And so you need to figure out what size fabric you're going to need in your hoop. All right, so I've got my back fabric cut. Now let's get our batting. Okay, there's the back. Here's my piece of batting. I just got an 80-20 polyester polycotton batting. This is something, I know it's an 80-20. And then I've got my top fabric, which is my Cuddle. And I'm thinking about the nap of the Cuddle because that's what we're always doing with Cuddle. So if I rub it this way, the nap goes the wrong way. If I rub it this way, the nap's going this way. Here's my selvage edge over here, and the stretch goes across. I'm going to make sure that every block that I do, I've got those all oriented the same way. So before I put those in the hoop, I do want to put a little bit of basting spray on those. So in order to put basting spray, I need to get out my spray box, and for my spray box I use a taco box. That's what we've got here in San Antonio. You could use a clean pizza box or a bakery box. My taco box helps prevent overspray. And what I'm going to do is I'm not going to spray my good fabric, the front or the back. I'm going to spray the batting. And so whatever batting temporary adhesive spray you use, try to avoid spraying the actual fabric and spray your batting piece in the middle. That way you can minimize the chance of staining the fabric if you happen to spray with a heavy hand. I'm going to smooth out my fabric really well, make sure I don't have any wrinkles or bumps, and then place my fabrics on top of that. And you can make all of your quilt sandwiches at one time, right? So now I've got my little sandwich and it's ready to hook. So let's move our taco box. And let's get our embroidery hoop. Okay, I've got the back of my embroidery hoop. I'm going to lay my quilt sandwich over it so that everything is in here nice and secure. And then I'm going to put the top hoop on, and I'm ready to go. My hooping is nice and tight. I didn't use any stabilizer. There's my backing. This is the front, and this is going to go straight on the embroidery machine. And I'll put a little piece of silky heat away topper on top so that I can get beautiful embroidery on the top.